Jennifer Stein, welcome.
Thank you, Martin. Such a pleasure to be with you again.
It's always great to see you. You have such a great smile and great energy. And
we have a mutual admiration
for
each other.
So anyway, you On Wings Films, that's...
Yeah, On Wings Productions. Has been the production company for a long time. Plus, I've been involved in MUFON forever, like 25 years now.
Yeah.
Philadelphia is where I started. And then I moved to Arizona in 2021, and I wasn't there long. And Stacy Wright grabbed me around the neck and said, "You're doing programs in Sedona." I went, "I am? I don't live in Sedona." And she said, "Yeah, but you can do it." So
how far away are you from Sedona?
An hour and a half.
Okay. And is that, I've been there, it's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
And a friend of mine went there and he called me right away. He's not into UFOs, but he said, "I had a UFO sighting." He goes, and guess what? It ended up being Starlink. But there is something about the Sedona area that's unusual, that things seem to happen there.
Mm-hmm. And breaking right now with Ross Colhart and Melinda Leslie is the information about Bradshaw Ranch, which is basically an underground military base there. It's been there forever, but there's been very unusual sightings. And I've gone out a couple times with Melinda and seen very unusual lights, like coming right up out of the ground, going up into the, into space, and very unusual activity. Lots of helicopters, military helicopters circling unusual orbs and stuff like that. So there's strange stuff going on there. There's definitely vortexes there, energy vortexes. And it's also a place where like rapid synchronicity takes place. You're driving into Sedona, you're thinking you got to meet somebody. You stop the car to pick up a juice at Juice Plus, and you walk in and there's the person you need to talk to. Yeah. It's like, that happens all the time for me in Sedona. It's just, It's like a high energy space where things just coagulate and happen and like very spontaneously. Yeah. That's all you have to do is kind of think about stuff that needs to happen, and then it happens for you.
Wow. I think I might need to move there.
Well,
it does sound, I love that area. I've spent some time out there and that whole Phoenix area. Really enjoy it. The Frank Lloyd Wright place is so beautiful.
Beautiful.
But I mean, there was a reason he moved there.
That's right.
My
dad was an architect, and he actually, he worked for a firm in Chicago before he moved to Philadelphia. And they did work with Frank Lloyd Wright, and Frank admired my dad's drawings, and my dad admired Frank Lloyd Wright's work. So he built a modern house in Pennsylvania, sort of like Frank Lloyd Wright might have done.
Wow.
And so I of course, whenever people come to visit, I take them to the Frank Lloyd Wright house. It's really beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's something in Chicago. What great architecture there is in Chicago. I love going through Chicago and looking at the architecture, the river tour where you can see all those beautiful buildings. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating. And, if they didn't have the Great Chicago Fire, I know we're getting way off topic, but I mean, you just think of all the changes, and they had to elevate, a lot of the city and all that. They had to do a lot. But that's fascinating. So I know we're way off the UFO topic. We have to get back there. You're doing Skyfire Summit. So talk about that. Is this the 1975? So this is the 50th anniversary of the Travis
Walton story. That's right. So I made the documentary about Travis Walton and the other loggers in 2015, sort of in preparation for the 40th anniversary celebration.
Yes.
And I started it around 2012, 2013. I worked on it over time and had the wonderful help of Stanton Friedman and Rich Dolan, Lee Spiegel, Peter Robbins. So we produced that in 2015, and then I had to reproduce it in 2017 because of a rights issue I had with some of the archive footage that Stanton had helped me acquire. But the guy I bought the rights from never signed my contract after the film started winning awards. So I had written him a check for it, but he never signed my contract. And finally, after 2 years, I got a cease and desist letter from him. So I went, well, I can either try to take him to court, because I thought we had an agreement. We had emails, we had agreed for payment, but it was just simpler to go buy other archive footage. So I dropped his footage, remade the film, put in new archive footage, and then did some more in-depth interviews, which I was really glad I did, because I was able to add in Travis's brother, Don. I was able to add in Chuck Ellison, which I hadn't gotten in the first film. So David Jacobs. So I added in, made it a little more in-depth, and I did some great CGI in the second version of the film.
So one type of way, it was like what they call a happy accident.
A happy accident, I guess. Yes. Yeah. Plus, it also gave me the opportunity to relaunch the film in film festivals, because it was a revised version. Mm-hmm. So a lot of films happen that way. You make a film and then you launch it, and then you realize, oh, I could have done this or that, or you have a rights issue, or somebody tries to sue you for something, and then you have to go about, fixing it. So I did that. And now, believe it or not, it's been 10 years. It's the 50th anniversary coming up. And something I have done with Travis over the years, since we celebrated the 40th anniversary, is I tried to mark the anniversary every year doing something. So for a while, we did things on the West Coast, then we did some things on the East Coast. We did a speaking tour around the anniversary. So almost every year. And one year in 2021, we did a virtual worldwide conference on the anniversary of his event. I think that was the 46th.
Mostly because of COVID? Or did that have part of it?
Partially because of COVID, but also partially because in 2021, there was a big debunking campaign that came out with UFO Classified, Erica Luke's program, and Ryan Gordon. They seemed to think that they were going to pick apart the story of Travis, and they also picked apart the Betty and Barney Hill story. Yeah. And this was done on 2 continents, in Australia and in America. A website launched called something, I'll think of it in a minute, 10 Key Penny or something like that. It was a gal named Charlie Wood, I think her name was, or Charlie Wax. And she put a whole campaign on a website together saying, these abduction stories, these classic UFO stories are all fake. And then Ryan Gordon shows up and starts debunking Travis Walton's case. And that started in 2020, but it went on for a year. And they picked apart the Fire in the Sky film. They picked apart my film. They confused the facts. I mean, it was the typical debunking thing. Yeah. Destroy the character of the person, make him look like a juvenile delinquent, go after key pieces, and take them apart. And it didn't really stand its weight. It was easy to see what they were doing. Most people who understood debunking started texting me and calling me and saying, Jen, do you realize what they're doing? I said, yes, but there's always been debunkers. And it had the classic mark. It was amazing to me. It was a classic mark, as if Philip Klass had come back from the dead, because these were the same things that Philip Klass did. In fact, Ryan Gordon recorded people and then took their audio and changed it around and said to say things they didn't say, or cut out important pieces that would have made more sense. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And stuff that, had happened to Travis when he was 13, 14, 15 in Snowflake, he was digging up and saying, oh, he's a juvenile delinquent and whatnot, which of course wasn't true. So what happened is, towards the end of these podcasts, which went on for 6-7 months, finally, one of these guys shows up named Robert Sheaffer. And I had done research with Stanton Friedman and Kathleen Martin in some archives, especially in Philadelphia, where I lived, the American Philosophical Society. And there was a lot of information on Philip Klass there and his techniques and what he did, and a lot of correspondence between Robert Sheaffer and Philip. And I understood that Robert Sheaffer went to Northwestern University, where J. Allen Hynek had been the chief astronomer. So Robert Sheaffer, as a graduate student, was sort of hired or enlisted or promoted or coached to watch J. Allen Hynek. So Robert Sheaffer became a debunker right along with Philip Klass. And I believe, although I'm not certain, but I'm very suspectful, that when Robert Klass died, Robert Sheaffer kind of adopted or picked up his material, certainly his mission. And I think that Robert Sheaffer was behind this big debunking campaign and probably hired or enlisted or coached Ryan Gordon. So, like the breadcrumbs lead back. Yeah. So what happened in that year, in 2021, is Ron Janix, who produces this conference, contacted me along with Jordan Pease, who was working with him. And he said, we should really do a virtual event on the anniversary of Travis Walton's case, because this is absurd what's going on. I mean, they literally said that Travis never saw a UFO. What he was looking at was a fire tower instead, and it was lit up at night. And that's why he looked up and thought this was a UFO. And fire towers have these beams on them, these light-alls, where they can signal other fire towers far away. But fire towers only exist in the Sitgreaves National Forest at the very highest parts of the mountain so that they can signal one another. They weren't down in the Turkey Springs Valley where they were. So there's no way it could have been the fire tower because it was 5 miles away. But people bought it. People who haven't been there, they bought it. You know, they're like, oh, it could have been the fire tower. And then they said his brother hid out up there, hit him with a beam of light, and Travis just jumped back 20 feet and then laid there like he was dead, you know. And all the boys in the crew were so scared they drove away. Well, these boys drove by the fire tower every day. They knew where it was. They knew what it looked like.
That's ridiculous.
They were loggers. They were going to mistake it. So in 2021, we did a big expose online about this, and we had on with it. We had this wonderful tribute, and I think it helped Travis and the other guys in the crew feel and recognize that educated, that's done some reading, knows that. And that people that are educated don't take these tactics seriously. So that was all the more reason I thought I should continue to go on and try to mark some anniversaries. And certainly the 50th anniversary is an important one. So I undertook about a year ago to plan a conference, and I was trying to plan it in Snowflake. I was going to put it on up there because that's his hometown. And I talked to the head of the Kiwanis Club. I talked to the Chamber of Commerce. I talked to people in Heber. I talked to the mayor. I talked to the police chiefs. You know, I couldn't get any of them to consider running an annual conference up there because I said, look, it'll be an economic boom. You could bring in easily for the Kiwanis Club if they got behind it and ran it, like Exeter, New Hampshire, or Pine Bush, or McMinnville, right, or Roswell. I said, look, I know all the people. I can put you in touch with the business manager of these or the conference coordinators. You could bring in $10, $20, $30, $40,000 for your local charities. They wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. They don't want to be associated with this.
Isn't that funny?
And
doesn't make any sense.
I was just really saddened by that. And it kind of made me feel sorry for all these loggers who came out of Snowflake. So I was running Sedona MUFON already for 2 years. And I thought, well, just heck, I already have a venue I'm using there. I'm going to keep it small. There's only 175 seats at this conference. The people who know they want to be there, who want to come and honor Travis and want to mark what's happening in the world right now, because now disclosure, I think we live in a post-disclosure world, but some people think we're right on the brink or the precipice of it with congressional hearings that are legitimate hearings. You can now hear about UFOs on the nightly news, right? It's,
News Nation,
News Nation, Ross Coulthart, you can't put it under the rug anymore. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to do the conference in Sedona. There's only 175 seats. We will sell out. It's a 4-day conference. We're screening Accidental Truth on Friday night. We have an all-day program on Saturday with Don Schmidt, who will be in. He'll be talking about Roswell. We'll also be talking about basically secrecy to transparency. What has gone on in the last 80 years, and why is this such a big kerfuffle? How do you educate the public in 2, 3, 4 years when you've kept something secret for 80 years? Generations have grown up thinking UFOs are, a laughing matter. So how do you begin to educate them how serious this issue is? Because everything is tied to the UFO issue. If you look at our military, look at our space programs, look at our finance, look at our black budget, look at our economic problems, look at mind control, look at the psychology and sociology departments at major universities, just look at governmental history, the Robertson panel, and I just heard that AARO has gone out of business. AARO has now been defunded and deplatformed because they're not doing anything. So Trump said, look, if you're not going to research UFOs, I'm not going to fund you. Wow. So we continue to go through this, figure 8 loop of deception and confusion.
This just happened?
Just a couple days ago, I think.
How about that?
AARO got defunded. So.
Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, I had a talk with Ross Coldhart about AARO, and, you know, I mean, there's some things I didn't agree that they were really, it was like window dressing in a way, you know?
Yes, they weren't really doing the research.
Yeah.
And the whistleblowers that Ross has brought forward, they came forward because they gave testimony, they gave written reports, like David Grusch, and they ignored them. They wouldn't look at them. They said, no, there doesn't seem to be any evidence. And the same with Jake Barber. He came forward and said, look, I've got information. This is the work I've done. These are the projects I've worked on. And they didn't accept his testimony. So he went to the news. So we're living in a day and age when whistleblowers are going to change the reality.
It seems like it. It seems like it could be heading that way. Now, going back to Travis and Philip Klass and all that.
Yes.
There was a rumor, and I don't know if it was substantiated, that Philip tried to write a check for 10 grand.
Yes,
so
he did.
Steve would say that
this never happened.
Never happened.
Yes.
What would be the incentive of him writing that type of check?
Well, I mean, the other good question to ask, Martin, is where would he come up with that money?
And why would why would it be paid? Is that just to, you know, I mean,
Steve Pierce was the youngest member of the crew.
Yes.
He was only 17.
Yeah. Right.
He shouldn't have been out there logging until he was 18 in terms of insurance for what, you know, the crew boss, Mike Rogers, had a contract with the Forest Service. So the guys all had to be 18 or older to work there. So he was kind of underaged. And I think he was trying to hide that. Now, all of these guys came from, you know, very, you know, struggling families, I will say. And these boys went out to get a job and work like Travis did. So he could help support his family, you know? So Steve was helping his mom. His dad was long gone, and he had a good job. He didn't want to lose it. He didn't want to admit that he was underage. And he was on the floorboards when they saw that UFO. He was hiding he was trying to climb under the seat of the back of the cab where he was sitting because he was so freaked out when he saw it. When they finally spotted it, they all knew it was a UFO. I mean, there was no doubt. They didn't look up and say, oh, is that a satellite? Is that Venus? I mean, no. John Goulet said it was like looking at a brand new Corvette or something I would never see or get close to. That's why Travis jumped out of the truck. It was this incredible piece of machinery.
Right.
And Travis just wanted a really good look at it.
And didn't Steve do a painting of it? I mean, he's a talented artist.
Mike Rogers, not Steve.
Mike Rogers.
Mike
he's
Rogers,
a talented,
who was the crew boss. Very talented painter. Yes, he did. In fact, Mike was very kind. He gave me permission to use his art in the film, which I was very grateful for.
Right.
So, yes. So Steve was the youngest member of the crew. He was also a little freaked out. And they were also, all these boys were interrogated by the police while they were hunting for Travis for 5 days.
Right.
There was search parties of about 100 people a day that went out every day. And there was a sheriff or a police officer or a sergeant or somebody who, or a deputy who was with each group of search parties, directing them and telling them what to do. And usually all the crew members said this, sometime during the day on each of those 5 days, the crew boss, the crew members were like pushed up against a tree by the deputy and said, look, maybe you didn't kill Travis. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe somebody else did. Obviously, he's dead. You buried him. You're all trying to cover it with this UFO story. And you can go to jail. You can hang. You can go to the electric chair unless you come clean. So even if you didn't do it, you better tell us who did. Yeah. And so they were all freaked out because obviously they hadn't killed him. They all saw this UFO. So they all had to undergo lie detection tests. And they were freaked out by that. They weren't necessarily arrested, but there was a police officer outside their house for those 5 days until they all took the lie detection test. And that night, Travis came back. So it was a real calamity of events. So Steve was very unnerved. Some of these boys had what I would call mild police records. I think Alan Dallas had taken a car when he was 14 for a joyride and left it somewhere. And he was afraid he was just going to get put back in jail for something. Now that he was like 21 or something, they were going to put him in jail for something he did when he was 14. And he didn't finish the test because he got so pissed off because he didn't understand what the process was in the lie detection. So Steve Pierce changed his name to Jeff, got a job in Texas. I think he was driving a truck, and really tried to disassociate himself from the story and from Travis, because it was, I mean, the ridicule they underwent was huge in 1975, 76, 77. Yeah. So I think it was 1977 or 1978. After the crew then took multiple lie detection tests, because Philip Klass came after them saying, oh, they made it up, it's still not true, whatnot. And the boys got exasperated, and they didn't want anything to do with Philip anymore, especially Mike Rogers, who wrote all the letters for the crew back and forth. Philip Klass never contacted Travis, never tracked him down, never tried to phone him. He only went after the other members of the crew because he thought he could manipulate them.
Right.
He knew he couldn't manipulate Travis. So he went after the youngest member of the crew, flew to Texas, took him out to dinner, and offered him $10,000 to claim that it never happened. Because if he could get one of them to turn, then he had it. Then he could really debunk it.
That sort of happened too in the Allagash incident.
Yes. Yes.
Very similar.
Yes.
So here's the thing. All the different times I've interviewed Travis, one time I was interviewing him and I thought, I'm going to try to ask him something that nobody's ever asked him before. So I said, Travis, when you were on the ship, where did you go to the bathroom? I didn't think anyone could ever ask him that. And he goes, geez, I don't remember. I mean, did they have urinals? And then I said, I mean, probably people have asked him, I said, do you remember any smells? That type of thing. And he did say that he had a hard time breathing,
right.
Which makes sense, actually. Right. I mean, they had something going on there, maybe not exactly like, one of the things I've always thought of is, you think of how when the explorers around the world would show up somewhere and the indigenous people, they'd bring European diseases and gone, wipe out a whole civilization. And so if these beings are here walking freely, or they're actually interacting, it makes you wonder, is there different biological things that can or could have happened, those type of things.
Well, that's covered very well in the Virginia case in James Fox's film.
That's right.
So
that guy
I think
died.
there are different species that have different conditions that could be quite dangerous.
Yeah.
But the Greys apparently have been here abducting people and doing work and whatnot for a long time. They may be here also taking samples. And I've thought a lot about the Travis case and wondering what they were doing up there on that Mogollon Rim in the Sitgraves National Forest, hiding. They were really tucked below the canopy of the trees. There had been a tree there that we ended up nicknaming the Nat Geo tree, because National Geographic came up and did an expose, and that tree ended up becoming, it was gone. It was cut the year before this event happened. It was cut in 1974 because I think it had gotten hit by lightning and it was dying. So they cut it down, but it was so big, it was a 300-year-old tree. And the canopy that it took up created a hole in the other trees. So this craft, with 20-foot disc craft, was sitting in that canopy. It was only 15 feet off the ground. So it's about the height of our ceiling here. Mm-hmm. And it was lighting up the whole forest, but it wasn't up high. So people didn't really see it. It came in and was sort of hiding. My suspicion is that Mogollon Rim is not far from the Trinity test sites in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. So if you were looking at where fallout would have happened, it would have happened first on that Mogollon Rim, because it's 7,000 feet high, and it covers parts of New Mexico into northern Arizona, then straight on up into Colorado. It's the largest ponderosa pine forest in the world, and it's mostly a flat rim, right? So if you're going to have settling, you would have fallout happening there. And a lot of people in Snowflake had cancers, leukemias, things like that. So possibly they were there doing some biological tree sampling or soil sampling or something. And when these boys discovered it on their way out, I mean, I don't know if it was planned or not.
Yeah.
I don't really think it was. I think it was accidental. So when they came upon it, and Travis got out, I think it was trying to raise up and take off And there's a lot of electric static charge there. There's a lot of fulgurites in the ground. There's a lot of magnetism or magnetite in that land mass there. And as it was rising up, it built up a static electric charge. All the boys felt it, you know, and they're like, if they'd had their work hats on, they would have been sitting up on their heads, you know. And when Travis was so close to it, he squatted down to watch it a little more. It started to make weird sounds. It started to rise up. He felt the electric charge. The boys were screaming at him, something's going to happen. Get back in the truck. Come on. You know, what'd you do? And Travis stood up to run back to the truck. And at the moment he stood up, boom, bam, that's when it hit him.
Yep.
So I think it was a reactive electrical charge that came out of the craft that wasn't intentional. And it threw him like a grenade had gone off. John Goulet talked about that. He was in the military, he was in the Navy, and he saw people being blown up with grenades. And he said it was just like he'd gotten hit by either a moving vehicle or a grenade or something like that. It just was very powerful. And when he landed, he crumpled up. He made no attempt to break his fall. He didn't move after he landed. And Mike Rogers thought, well, we're going to get hit next. They didn't know if it was deliberate or not. So they drove away.
Yeah.
And, hence all the speculation that they killed him. But I think that they actually did kill Travis accidentally. Then they picked him up again when the boys drove away. So his story on board the craft is a very interesting story, especially for 1975, okay?
Yes.
Because we don't know how long it took him to wake up. He said he came to some consciousness, but he doesn't know how long that period of time was. He couldn't see, he couldn't hear very well, he couldn't breathe very well. All of his senses were muffled. And he knew he was being taken care of. He could feel people like occasionally moving him. He could feel heat on his chest, but he was in a lot of pain. He was having a hard time breathing, but he knew people were caring for him. And he figured he was going in and out of consciousness and he was in the hospital. And then finally he got his eyesight to focus on this thing that was on his chest because light and heat was coming off of it. So they were healing him with like frequencies and light rays and things like red light therapy and blue light therapy, I guess. So he could see this device on his chest, and finally his eyes could focus on that. And then he could start to focus a greater distance. So at one point he's looking at this device and he's trying to see further. He's seeing the light in the ceiling above him. And all of a sudden these three gray beings look over him and he freaks out.
Yeah.
He knows, I'm not in Kansas, right?
Yeah.
So that's when he freaked out, kind of came to quickly because he was freaked. Rolled off the table. This device rolled off of him and looked for some tools, which there seemed to be some medical tools there. Yeah. And he grabbed something he thought was a glass tube and tried to break it, but it wouldn't break. But he was banging it on the table he had been on, freaking these gray aliens out. And they tried to probably contain him. They lifted their hands up and tried to kind of get inside his brain, he thinks. And when they couldn't do it, they kind of looked at each other and said, well, the room.
He said scary.
The eyes were the freaky thing. And he said he felt like they were really trying to pry into his brain.
Yeah.
But then the next incredible thing that happens, besides him finding this other room in the craft, which he called the navigation room, he then is rescued, per se, by someone he thought was a NASA astronaut. He thought this person was human. A little taller than him, blue jumpsuit, helmet on his head that had a light in it, lighting up his face, blonde hair,
very
blue
beautiful
eyes,
people.
Beautiful, muscular person comes in, takes his arm, leads him out of this disc-shaped craft, across a tarmac, into another medical facility.
But it was all in type, wasn't really tarmac, was all inside of something,
it was
right?
like he was inside an airline hangar
like
or an
hangar.
Airplane hangar.
Yes.
Except there were other discs, not discs. There were other craft sitting over there that were egg-shaped craft.
It just
like
shows that
Tic-Tacs.
We're talking consistency because he's told me these very things, which is fascinating.
Yes.
And
so Travis ran into two species. Nobody talked about two species in 1975, probably working in tandem. The Greys had parked their disc craft. Now, maybe the Greys were worker bees for these maybe Nordics.
That's another theory
We
you've
don't
heard.
know. Like
Yeah.
all these was he on a mothership? Was he in an underground base? Was he, out in space? Was he on another planet? We don't freaking know.
Yeah.
But in the second version of the film, the 2017 version, which is the only version I have out now for sale, and it's on YouTube. People can watch it for free now on YouTube. We went in depth in the second version and did a graphic reenactment of this with CGI and everything of exactly what happened on the craft. And I think it's well worth watching. And when I speak with Travis, which I'll be doing in Roswell this year, I actually show an earlier version of that reenactment that's not edited the way it's edited in the film. So it's clearly the reenactment. You can almost like a cartoon version of what happened to him from the moment he wakes up until the moment he goes back out. Because that's the thing that people are really curious about.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? The younger generations, I hate to say this, but they don't read. They get all their information on sound bites, right? Off of YouTube and TikTok, and they don't know the story, and they're all confused about it. So, but they're curious about it too.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I got to tell you this funny story because you'll appreciate it. The 40th anniversary. So I contact Travis. Just said that happens to land on whatever night I was doing my show at that time. It was either Tuesday or Wednesday. So I said, "Is there a way I can have you on the phone during that, when you're there at the site and visiting the site?" And he said, "Well, yeah, but the phones don't come in there." So I said, "All right, I'll send you a satellite phone. I'll rent one and send it to you." And I did. So, I was in touch with Alejandro Rojas at the time, who was there. So Alejandro and I'm calling Alejandro, and I said, "Alejandro, is Travis there?" And he says, "Yep, he just showed up. He showed up late, but he just showed up, And so I go, "Oh, hey, can you go ask him to, start the satellite phone so we can do the show?" So he goes, "Oh, guess what? Travis left it at home." So I rented it, had it shipped to his home, and he forgot it. So anyway, I said, "Well, Alejandro, I'm talking to you. Hand the phone over to Travis." And he did, and then we pulled it off.
We
had him there on the location.
That's amazing.
That was pretty funny.
I have so much respect for Alejandro.
Yeah.
He and his significant other, Karen Berard, ran the 40th anniversary conference. I ran the 39th by default.
Yeah.
I was there to film, and I ended up having to run it when I showed up. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're doing
good
this.
Memories. Good memories.
Yeah. It's fun. But anyway, it's always been a pleasure, Jennifer. Really nice to talk to you.
It really is a pleasure to speak with you, too. I will mention, too, for anybody who lives in the Arizona area, on November 5th, the actual anniversary, the Sedona Film Festival is doing 2 screenings of the film, which is really nice. So we'll do Q&A there. And on November 8th, we're also doing an event for Phoenix MUFON. So
excellent.
A lot of opportunity to celebrate.
That's great. All right. Thanks. And we'll talk to you again at another time.
I so look forward to it.
All right.